Hey Cal, I have to say I was both impressed and depressed by your pun video, so job well done. Anyway, I'd like to talk more about that, and I will come back to puns later, but for now I have to move on because it's time to talk about ponies. Wait, what? So if you're not already aware, Hasbro recently decided they would reboot the My Little Pony franchise. So kind of like in the 80s, Transformers is their, their toy for boys, My Little Pony is their toy for girls. But it turns out My Little Pony has become popular with a completely different fan base. The bronies. So if you haven't already heard the term, brony generally refers to the adult or adolescent male fans of the show, although the brony community is not strictly male. And if you spend enough time on the internet, you're probably going to run into bronies, because the community is enormous and it just keeps growing. The My Little Pony subreddit has more than 25,000 members, and even the New York Times has recognized brony as an actual term. Now, bronies usually insist that you give the show a chance before you actually judge it, and I thought that might make an interesting video. So for the sake of science, I sat through the entire first season of My Little Pony, and it was horrible. Is what I expected to say when I made this video. But it turns out the show's not terrible. It's really, really not terrible. So while I expected this video to be about nostalgia or cashing in on an old show or something like that, it turns out it's the writing that I focused on. And so without further ado, and here's a sentence that I never thought I'd find myself saying, here are 5 lessons on writing from My Little Pony Friendship is Magic. Number 1, don't half-ass it. So back when they rebooted Battlestar Galactica, I didn't understand why you would remake a show that wasn't that good to begin with, except then they did, and it turned out to be awesome because of great writing, and My Little Pony is much the same. Probably the biggest reason for My Little Pony's success is the artistic direction of Lauren Faust, and if you think the art style looks familiar, it's because she also worked on shows like the Powerpuff Girls and Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends. Considering that the direction of the original show was who cares as long as you introduce a new pony that we can sell every week, she really could have phoned this one in. But she didn't. The writing is top-notch. Even the songs come off as genuinely funny and tongue-in-cheek. Faust put a lot of work into the presentation of the show, and it really shows. She also realized that audience isn't exclusive. So generally, if you're marketing a show to young girls, you don't have to put a lot of thought into it. You wrap it up in some pink, write some crappy songs. So while My Little Pony is pretty obviously aimed at that market, it isn't owned by it. For example, there's actually conflict in the show, which is something that the My Little Ponies of the 80s never had. And also Lauren Faust sort of realized that parents often watch these shows with their kids, and the parents shouldn't have to sit through this agonizing torture of horrible children's television. They could actually enjoy the show also. A lot of the show's humor works on multiple levels, and while there are occasionally times when you're reminded that this is a children's show, it doesn't happen very often. Number 3, characters. So characters in the original show all had different names, but from what I've seen they had the personalities of raisins. The reboot revolves around what fans call the main 6, the 6 main characters, each of who have their own unique tendencies and characteristics. And even for side characters, the show rarely resorts to over-the-top caricatures, although there are some notable exceptions. As a result, the interactions between the characters come off as really genuine, and as we know, characterization goes a long way for believability. It's sort of the same thing that makes us believe that Buffy could take place in a town where 6 people die mysteriously every week, and it also can make us watch a show about magic ponies. Number 4, world building. One mistake that a lot of kids shows make is that they make a world where things are possible, but then they remove the elements in which they don't want the kids to know about. But the thing is, kids aren't dumb, they know when something's being held back. If you're censoring your world, the problem isn't with your audience, it's with your world. To cite another cartoon, Avatar: The Last Airbender did this really well. As the series progressed, it doesn't run away from dark themes, in fact it embraces them, and by the time you're into the 3rd season, things begin to get genuinely disturbing. And in a way the show does something similar. The show takes place in the world of Equestria. Wait, is that a pony pun? Yeah, I said we'd be coming back to puns. There's actually a lot of puns in this show, including but not limited to Canterlot, Manhattan, Baltimore, Cloudsdale. Yeah, okay, I think we get it. So anyway, things are established pretty early on how things work in this world, that there are real dangers out there, but if the group works together, there's nothing they can't overcome. In other words, they don't have to cheat the audience out of anything because it isn't there. So you can view this as kind of a cop-out. I mean, not having that sort of threat sort of takes away from the drama, but sometimes you don't always need that. Designing the setting this way ensures that the target audience stays interested without having to alienate anyone. And number 5, pacing. I think that The Lord of the Rings sort of ruined some writers because they saw that Tolkien packed a lot of lore into his books, and they didn't realize that that was like only 10% of the lore he actually wrote. So a lot of writers over-explain instead of starting in the middle of things. My Little Pony doesn't make that mistake. It unveils little bits and pieces of the world at a time, and it slowly builds up to a bigger picture. Like the various Joss Whedon universes and the Harry Potter universe, it's something that allows fans to really interact with the source material on a different level. So there you have it, the video I never expected to make about the show I never expected to watch with the writing lessons I never expected it to have. But maybe the best thing about the show is that it gives me hope for shows that are coming out in the future, because Hasbro really surrendered most of their creative rights to do this. They took a risk on it, and it paid off for them. As far as the show goes, I don't know that I would go so far as to recommend it to you, but the fact is, if you can get past this, My Little Pony, and see it through to this, you're going to love me! It's actually a pretty enjoyable watch. If nothing else, I think it's a good example of the fact that if you keep an open mind, your writing can be enhanced by the most unexpected of things. See you next time.